Siberia.
Welcome to Siberia. Temperature, it's a physical presence, an invisible monster that tries to kill you every second you're exposed to it. At minus 60 degrees, the physics you learned in school ceases to function. If you throw boiling water upwards, it doesn't fall like water. It instantly explodes into a cloud of ice crystals before it even touches the ground. If you touch metal without gloves, your skin doesn't just freeze, it fuses to the steel. Even the sound here is different. When you exhale, the vapor from your breath freezes so quickly that it makes a subtle noise, like rice falling to the ground. The natives call it the whisper of the stars. Welcome to Yakutia, the coldest, most hostile, and isolated inhabited place on Earth. While the rest of the world complains when the thermometer drops below zero, here children eat ice cream at 40 degrees Celsius because it warms their bodies. But how is this possible? Why would 300,000 people choose to live in a place where car engines can never be turned off? Where the dead cannot be buried because the ground is harder than concrete? In this documentary, we will not only visit Siberia, we're going to try to survive it. The World Around channel invites you to enter the world's refrigerator. Tighten your coat, it's going to get cold. To reach the heart of this frozen hell, there is only one way: the R504, better known as the Kolyma Highway. But the locals don't use that name. They call it the Road of Bones. And that's not a poetic nickname, it's literal. This 2,000-kilometer road was built during the darkest era of the Soviet Union, under Stalin's orders. Millions of Gulag prisoners, intellectual criminals, political enemies were sent here with pickaxes to break up the permafrost. They worked in temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius, poorly fed, dressed in rags. The rule was brutal. If you died on the job, there was no time to dig a grave in the frozen ground. The body was simply thrown onto the roadbed and covered with gravel. As we travel along this slippery ice track, be aware of this. With every meter we advance, we are driving over an unmarked cemetery. Today, the road is the only vital artery connecting the outside world to Yakutsk. And the golden rule for those who drive here is simple: never travel alone. If your car breaks down on this road and no one passes by for the next 2 hours, you won't just be late, you'll die. The cold seeps into the cabin in minutes. The glass freezes from the inside. The blood thickens. The end is silent and swift. At the end of this road, we arrive in Yakutsk, the largest city built on continuous permafrost in the world. The first thing you notice when you arrive isn't the cold, it's the blindness. The city spends a good part of the winter covered in a frosty fog. This is no ordinary fog. It's exhaust fumes from factories and the very breath of thousands of people trapped, frozen in suspension in the still air. You walk the streets like a ghost, seeing only blurry shapes 2 meters away. But if you think Yakutsk is the limit, you're mistaken. If we drive 2 more days inland, we reach the pole of cold, the village of Oymyakon. Here the thermometer has already registered an impressive 71.2 degrees Celsius. It's the lowest temperature ever recorded in a permanently inhabited location. To put it in perspective, it's colder than the average temperature on Mars. In Oymyakon, the cold dictates every aspect of life. The ink in pens freezes. Cell phone batteries die in seconds if exposed to air. If you wear metal-framed glasses, you risk them burning your skin from the extreme cold, leaving permanent marks on your face. It's a place where the very atmosphere seems to try to expel you. And yet, schools only close if the temperature drops below 52 degrees Celsius. Before that, it's just another normal school day. While we humans have to hide behind triple walls and burn tons of coal outside, life goes on. Siberia is home to creatures that not only tolerate the cold, they were forged by it. Forget polar bears. Here, the king of resistance is the Yakut horse. They look like docile ponies, but they are biological war tanks. Unlike any other equine, they don't have barns. They spend the entire winter outdoors, in temperatures of 60 degrees Celsius, motionless, entering a state of suspended animation to conserve energy. Their fur is so dense that the snow on their backs doesn't melt with body heat. They dig through the deep snow with their hooves to find a patch of dry grass, surviving where no machine would work. Alongside them roam the reindeer, the true nomads of the tundra. But they have a secret superpower. Scientists have discovered that the eyes of Arctic reindeer change color. In summer, they are golden. In winter, they turn a deep blue. This change allows them to see ultraviolet light reflected off the snow, spotting food and predators in the eternal darkness where we would be blind. But where there are resilient prey, there are merciless predators. The Siberian wolf doesn't hibernate, it patrols. With wide paws that function like natural snowshoes, they run across the ice where others would sink. For them, winter is not an obstacle, it's hunting season. These creatures prove a universal law of nature. You either adapt or you disappear. How does a human body that burns 6,000 calories a day just to stay warm feed itself? Forget salads or fresh fruit. Here, fat is life. Visiting the central market of Yakutsk is a surreal experience. It's an open-air market. At -40 degrees, the vendors don't use freezers, the city is the freezer. Giant fish are stacked vertically, like logs of firewood. Milk isn't sold in liquid bottles, but in solid blocks of white bricks. Because here, the ultimate delicacy isn't cooked. I present to you the straganin. It's a river fish, usually whitefish or sturgeon, caught under the ice. It freezes instantly upon leaving the water. To eat it, the locals take the raw fish, hard as a rock, and use a sharp knife to scrape off very thin slices, like twigs. You eat these shavings raw and frozen, seasoned only with salt and pepper. Sounds strange? Maybe. But when you put it in your mouth, the fat melts, warming your body from the inside out. It's pure energy. It's the vitamin for survival in a land where vegetables don't grow. And don't think that this food is stored in the kitchen. In Yakutsk, the logic is reversed. Often, an electric refrigerator is used to prevent food from freezing too much. The real freezer is the window. Just hang a bag of horse meat or liver outside, and in minutes it will turn to stone. The atmosphere itself is a sterile preservative, keeping tons of supplies on the porch for months on end. But there is an even greater challenge than food: water. In many Siberian villages, there is no running water. All the water pipes run above our heads, insulated, because burying them in the permafrost is impossible. But in remote villages, not even that exists. So how do you get drinking water? You mine the water. During the winter, the men go to the frozen rivers and cut blocks of crystal-clear blue ice with chainsaws. These blocks are piled up among us and carried outside the houses. Whenever you need a glass of water, you go out in the cold, break off a piece of ice, and put it in a barrel inside the house to melt. Life here is a constant cycle of transforming solid into liquid. And that brings us to the most uncomfortable part of the conversation: the bathroom. Most houses in villages like Oymyakon don't have indoor toilets. The sewage can't be drained. This means that even at 50 degrees Celsius, if you need to use the toilet in the middle of the night, you have to go outside. You run through the snow to a small wooden cabin with a hole in the floor. The cold is so intense that it's physically dangerous to stay there for more than a few minutes. It's a brutal, unglamorous reality that shows that here, modern comfort is a distant luxury. If water is difficult to find, housing is an engineering challenge. Look at the buildings in Yakutsk. You'll notice something bizarre. None of them touch the ground. All the large buildings are erected on massive concrete stilts, floating 2 meters above the ground. Why? Because of the permafrost. The ground here isn't soil. It's a mixture of ice and sand that's been frozen for thousands of years. If you were to build a house directly on the ground, the building would melt the ice beneath. The foundation would turn to mud, and the building would sink and collapse. Besides the floating foundations, the architecture is a fortress against the outside air. There are no simple windows here. Each opening has triple-glazed, hermetically sealed windows, and the entrances function as decompression chambers. You never enter the room directly from the street. You pass through a heavy, felt-lined door, enter a small, insulated vestibule, and only then open the second door. But the system is fragile. In each house, heating comes from thermal plants that pump hot water 24 hours a day. If the system fails, residents have a deadly deadline. They have about 3 to 5 hours to fix the fault. If the water stops circulating, it freezes, expands, and bursts all the pipes in the house. If that happens, the house is dead. It becomes an uninhabitable block of ice until spring. The fear of losing the house is constant. But who are the people facing this daily challenge? If Siberia were a country, it would be the largest in the world, surpassing the size of Canada or the United States. However, it is a true human desert. It covers 77% of Russia's territory, but is home to only 33 million people. The population density is so low that you can travel for days without seeing another living soul. The official currency is the ruble. But in isolated villages, paper money loses its meaning. There, the economy reverts to its primitive state. Fuel, mechanical parts, and meat are worth more than a suitcase full of money. So why stay? Because Siberia is Russia's safe haven. This is where natural gas, oil, and diamonds come from, such as those extracted from the gigantic Minimir, a hole so deep that it creates air currents capable of sucking up helicopters. To attract labor to this icy hell, the government pays what are called northern wages. A driver or engineer here can earn 3 times what they would in Moscow. It's tempting, but it's a mathematical trap. You earn like a king, but spend it all just to survive. Almost everything consumed here needs to be brought in by plane or via dangerous, temporarily icy roads. The cost of shipping is passed on to the price on the shelf. A simple imported apple or fresh vegetables cost a small fortune. People live in golden cages. They hoard rubies, but live with a scarcity of basic comforts. It is a rich land that exacts a deadly rent from anyone who dares to exploit it. So far, we've talked extensively about how the cold attacks the skin and freezes the bones. But the real killer in Siberia may be silent, invisible, and acting from the inside out. Winter here brings a phenomenon that tests the limits of human sanity: the polar night. Depending on the latitude where you live, the sun simply doesn't rise for weeks or even months on end. The day is reduced to a short, melancholy gray twilight. The human body, deprived of direct sunlight, stops producing serotonin and vitamin D. The biological clock completely breaks down. Seasonal depression reaches episodic levels and increases. Many residents admit that the mental battle is much harder than the physical one. Alcoholism becomes a serious social problem, used by many as a cheap liquid escape from the darkness and utter boredom of confinement. But curiously, it is in this hostile environment that humanity shines brightest. The #1 social rule in Siberia is unconditional solidarity. On the road, if a car stops on the shoulder, the next driver has a moral obligation to stop and offer help. Nobody leaves anyone behind. The extreme cold eliminates selfishness, because if you are arrogant or individualistic here, you die alone. Survival in Siberia is, by necessity, a team sport. Siberia is not a destination for just anyone. It doesn't forgive mistakes and demands a daily tribute of respect, fear, and preparation. But for the Yakuts, the Russians, and the native peoples who call this icy desert home, the cold is not seen as suffering. It is identity. Visiting Siberia at 60 degrees Celsius changes you forever. It makes you realize how incredibly fragile the human body is in the face of nature, but at the same time, how infinitely adaptable the human spirit is. Here, at the end of the world, against all biological odds, life finds a way. And it is stubborn, beautiful, and cold. If you felt a chill down your spine and want to continue exploring the extreme limits of our planet, from the most active volcanoes to the deepest ocean abysses, your journey is just beginning.
No coração da Sibéria, onde o inverno cobre tudo com um manto de neve, cavalos selvagens fazem a sua rotina diária, impulsionados pela resistência e o ritmo da natureza.
The next expedition is about to leave. See you soon.